If you haven't watched it yet, make sure you watch the video that I posted about the vocabulary from section 1.1. This video is going to be going over examples of using that vocabulary. So we learned about all of these different vocabulary terms in the last video, looking at what they are on a diagram. So I talked about what each of these things are. So this blue thing is called a plane. We've got some lines here, the line going through the plane. You see what I talked about with the dotted line and making it look three-dimensional in a two-dimensional space. So I just want to point out a few things here, what they look like on the diagram. So we're going to be talking about points. Remember, points are capital letters and their locations. So we see all sorts of points here. So all 5 of those blue dots that I just labeled, S, T, Q, R, and W, are points. Remember, G is not a point because G is not capitalized. Okay, so we know it's not a point. It has to have a capital letter. Same with F. V is also not a point because it doesn't have a dot next to it, and it's in the corner of this plane. It's also bold. So lines here, so we've got this line that I'll just, oops, maybe I'll use an actual line here. So we've got this line here, okay, so this red one that kind of goes through the plane, excuse me, and then this blue one here that's laying in the plane. Remember, I know that this red one is going through the plane because it gets dotted, so maybe I'll show that it's dotted here too. And then it comes back out the bottom here. All right, so we've got the 2 different lines there. So this red line we can actually name G with that lowercase letter, or you could use the end point or the points W and Q. So a line you could name here is G, or QW with capital letters and a line over it in either order, WQ or QW. The blue one, okay, this blue line would be F, or any 2 of these points, R, Q, S, capitalized with a line over it. Those would also name a line. The plane, like we said, you could name this plane V because it has that bold letter in the corner. So that would be one way. That'd probably be the quickest way to name it. You can also name it with any 3 non-collinear points. Okay, so any points on this blue plane that aren't all in a straight line. So we've got 4 points labeled here on the plane. We need 3 of them. And they can't be on a straight line. So R, Q, and S are all on that blue line. So we can't use all of those. So we could name this plane R, S, T. You could do QST, TSR, QRT. Just cannot use Q, R, and S at the same time. For a segment, remember a segment is part of a line. So if we're only wanting a portion of either of these red or blue lines, so if you were to name a segment, like I could name this segment right here, if I'm just naming that purple segment, I would use the endpoints, Q and S, and then just draw a segment above it. There's a ton of them in here, okay, just any little portions. Make sure when you draw out a segment, you just don't use arrows on the ends. And then a ray would just extend in one direction with an arrow. So if I were going to take this segment here and actually just look at this whole ray, it would be this whole thing. So I could start at Q and then go towards S. Okay, so S is on the way towards that arrow. Starting point, arrow. Okay, so end point, so no arrow to arrow. When you look at opposite rays on a diagram, here's what I kind of look for. You want to find a line, because remember, opposite rays create a line. And you want there to be 3 points labeled because there needs to be a common middle point and then 2 other points on either side. So when I look at this red line here, I don't see 3 points. There's only Q and W. So I'm not going to be able to name this part of the ray because there isn't another letter over there or another point. Where on the blue line, okay, there's 3 points there. I'm just going to draw it again down here. So we have point R, we have point Q, and we have point S. So since there's 3, that's the one I'm going to choose for an opposite ray. Take the middle point, Q, that's going to be the one that's shared. Going this way, this ray is QR because R is in that direction. So QR, and then draw an arrow above it. And then the other ray starts at Q but goes this direction. So starts at Q and goes towards S, and then draw an arrow. Collinear, remember, all on a line. So you see that red and blue line, which one has 3 points on it? Name those. Remember, collinear has to have 3 points. Coplanar has to have 4. Points are labeled with capital letters. So if you're trying to name collinear points, okay, pick the 3 points, R, comma, Q, comma, S. You're naming those 3 separate points. For coplanar, you're naming 4. So you should have 4 points labeled out here, 4 capital letters, all on the same plane. So all on this blue plane. They need to be points. So you can't use F. Okay, you can't use V. They also need to be on the blue plane. W is not on the blue plane, so don't choose that one. Okay, so we've got these 4 points then here. R, Q, S, and T. Taking a look at these, let me get my head out of the way here. Taking a look at these, so just using our vocab terms to describe these different points and different figures that they're talking about. So H, I, and F, and you can pause the video and try this yourself and then come back and check your answers if you want. So H, I, and F, you can draw a straight line through them. So they're collinear. 3 points are also always coplanar. They're on the same plane. They're actually on this side plane and on the top. So if you thought about that as a box, it'd be on the left side there and they're on the top. Points E, F, and E, B, and C. Okay, they're not in a straight line. You have to curve. So we could say these are non-collinear. Another valid way to describe those points would also be coplanar because they're 3 points and they're on this side panel together. So that would be fine. Points B, C, and D. So plane B, C, D. So I like to just draw on them B, C, and D. So that's on this side plane here, okay, the right side of this box almost. Plane BCD contains what 4 points? Well, it obviously contains B, C, and D because they're in the name. And then what's the 4th one? E. This next one's asking about an intersection of 2 planes. So let's take a look at plane H, A, B. So remember, a plane is like a piece of paper or a wall. So I'll connect those, and then they're also on the same plane as this front panel. So this whole front panel of the box. And then we want to look at A, G, C. So here's A, G, and C. That's this bottom panel. So where do they touch? Where does the front and the bottom touch? So where did I draw on both of them? Right here. Segment AB. Then plane FDE. So plane FDE. So all 3 of these points are on this top plane. EBC. is this right-hand panel. And then where did they intersect? So I drew red and blue all along this segment right here, ED, or DE, it can go backwards too. Last two examples, name a point that is coplanar with each of the following. So let's take a look at the first one, HEI. So HEI, those are all on this top panel. Okay, so these ones are all on this top panel, so you could choose F or D to be coplanar there. Two answers, F or D. BCG, so BCG is this bottom plane, and we want another point that's in the bottom plane, A. Next one says name all points. So all of them, like this one we could just name either one. This one wants all of the points that are coplanar with H, F, and E. Those are all in the top plane. So the points that are, non-coplanar. Okay, so all the points that aren't in the same plane. Okay, so this is this top plane, name all the other ones. So A, G, B, and C. Those are the ones that are not in that plane. HBE. So HBE is this front plane. The points that are not in the front plane, I, F, G, D, C. Okay, all the ones that are not on this front panel. DCG, so here's D, C, G. Those are all on that back plane. So what points are not on that back side? I, H, A, B, and E. So these front panel ones and then this side one.